Hello, welcome to Untier Talk. We're doing that again. It's been a couple weeks since our last talk, but all we have for you today is 5 LTPL games. That is it. And today we have myself and Hajad as normal, but also taking part in 3 out of 5 of the things that we have for you today. Termi,
Hi.
I need to turn up your volume. That's my fault.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's my
I
fault.
just put my phone closer to myself too.
That's okay. You're good. There we go. Okay, Termi, hello. Uh,
Hi.
so where last we left off with LTPL, we had semifinal matchups. Only 2 games in all of semis, which is low for PU this time. And we will start chronologically with your first game, Termi on the whatever team you are versus whatever team
I
Renchan is on.
that is
Let's
the
see.
fuck.
Oh, you're main
I
Ectrix.
think
I
they're
should have remembered that.
Flygons.
No, your
The
main
Tonys.
Ectrix and Renchan is Rayquazas.
Yeah, the Tonys.
The Tonys, yes. Um, First question: does your team have any specific relation to that team that Chloe posted in samples and used earlier? Because I know the first thing that we talked about in Discord when we saw it was like that does look very similar to Chloe's team.
No, there were quite a few differences. It does have like a few things in common. Like I think hers also has like Rocks Aggron and Whimsicott and Talonflame, but those are also on like every other team.
Your team has Guzzlord instead of Whimsicott, and instead of Kofag, you have Wheezing. That's it. 4 Mons are the same. So
Wait, Guzzlord and Weezing. You're looking at two different teams, I think.
no. You have Whimsicott Wheezing, and Chloe has Guzzlord Kofag,
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that's it.
which also like sort of hit the same roles, but not quite. You definitely have a more robust fighting type matchup, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that the Firewater Grass Court, the Virizion Talonflame Lantern thing is quite common or quite popular nowadays, especially given that you can pivot with Talonflame and Lantern quite easily.
Mm-hmm. So as soon as they both have a Rock Sagron, I guess the comparisons are just inevitable.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think Roxagron, I used it like twice in like the last couple of weeks, and that's like a really underrated set, I think, because like it's often kind of hard to um make all like fit all the defensive roles that you need on the team, and still have like enough breaking power. And like Aggron's just really nice at like being able to set up rocks while still functioning as a breaker, kind of, and also having like a couple of useful resists and like a high defense set. Like I've really like enjoyed this set.
yeah, I rate the Aggron. I think a lot of people would be tempted in this team to just go and slap like a Regirock on, but I feel like Aggron's the correct choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you want to supplement the breaking power, particularly because you're running a much slower variant of the team. Like it's got natural speed. T Flame Whimsicott, uh, Prankster Encore Whimsicott too helps, and Virizion, but no actual Scarfer here. So I think the extra breaking power, I guess, keeps you more in a more threatening state because you don't want to be playing this super defensively.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, like Frisian is like my only breaker otherwise, and if like the opponent like is like very prepped for Frisian, or you don't get like a lot of opportunities with it, then it's kind of hard to really wear them down if they have like these spikes.
For sure.
Yeah, I also like how it pressures with the T spikes. I think that's T spikes are like one of those fishy types of things where it's like, yeah, we can. I'll have T spikes on the set, but I don't necessarily plan on using it. If that makes any sense. So having that integration is also nice.
Yeah, if you run into an absorber, it's just well, I guess I'm not really using this move. But if you don't, like you didn't, then it becomes a much larger factor. Like in this game, that extra 12% chip on Passimian is like, oh, we can only switch into Aggron Head Smash a single time. That's a noticeable difference in terms of how much you get to smack things around.
yeah, it also helps with the revenge killing with Talonflame and shit as well. So it's really helpful.
What else about the matchup? I think we've hit Termi's team pretty well. Renchan's is interesting. I do love seeing more Frostlass. Um, but I
My
didn't.
my concern with Rentron's team just comes down to a lack of like really good hazard control. Like if rocks are just annoying, like sure you have the boots on Talonflame, but rocks themselves are just kind of annoying to deal with. Like you ideally don't want to have to deal with that.
What was
But
really critical was Termi got a knockoff. T Flame hard switching into Whimsicott gets knocked off turn 4. That's incredibly
yeah,
early and a big old problem.
exactly, yeah. And then you just get rocks up, and suddenly your team is just taking 12% constantly. Especially in a meta where Termi is not taking 12% constantly. So it's it works both ways in that sense. I think, yeah. Apart from that, though, I think the idea behind the team is actually really nice. I do like the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't see
I
very
think like
much.
the only thing is like because like his frostless like it's clearly very much like focused around like spamming hazards, given that he's like a taunt frostless and he has like Bind Mon and
Yeah, he was
clearly
willing to
like
give up his frost last turn too, wasn't he?
yeah, no, exactly. Like me, like going Fire Blast with losing on like the taunt, and then like uncoring him into a Destiny Bond and picking him off because he doesn't really have much of a solid switch into Whimsicott. It's just immediately like an incredibly big thing. Um, I don't wait. No, he went Talonflame, then like got his boots knocked, and then later on, like I think he just sacked it.
Yeah, it never did anything, and I feel like we could have seen a much better performance from the team had you not just outplayed them very hard in those like just first couple of turns. Really,
Well, yeah, I
hurt
think we've
so
all been in that
much.
scenario. We've all been in that scenario though, where we built around something. Like in this case, it's Frostlass, right? But we've all built around something, and the thing just doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So if you build a team around something and that thing doesn't work, you're probably going to end up losing. So it just
Yeah,
sucks, I guess.
yeah, and it didn't help that CB Passimian into a T Spikes team with Wheezing and Whimsicott and Talonflame. Not really ideal for what you want to face.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. If this was the Chloe version of the team, I think Temi would have had a much harder game. But
yeah, CB
I think
Passimian
this
would have been able to hit knockoff a lot more or something. But in this game, it close combated like a few times, but every time Termi had something to just eat one and be fine. So
and you always have the Talonflame in the back with like 100%. So it's like it's never threatening anything beyond um, getting a kill, maybe.
yeah, I'm not sure. Termi, do you have any like bits of this game that you found? I don't know. It's like turns that you felt especially worth pointing out or anything. Because I feel like after, like we said, by turn 4, Frostlass has been fire blasted and never got any hazards. Talonflame has been knocked off, and those were really big. And after that, there are some plays. Wrenchon hits a couple doubles, you hit a couple predictions, but like, um, no particular turn felt super dominant or important as much as just you had the lead and you just kept it the whole way.
That was basically it. Like after those first few turns, I did immediately just like put myself in a position to where I could play fairly safe and just be fine because basically let's see, like turn 8 I get the T spike up where he probably should have like U-turned with his Passimian, but like that's also sort of like risky against like a team of Talonflame and like I guess I don't really agree with that play there, since I didn't really have any reason to risk my aggron at that point. But in any case, whatever his reasoning was, like that was me getting T Spike up against like a team that just did not really have the tools for that. Um, and then see, I think there was like one play that I like was happy with. I think that was me just like doubling into my aggron from Whimsicott while Regirak was in. No way, no, wasn't there. Oh, it was, yeah, it was there, but it was in the second turn. He first like let the Regirock take a Giga Drain to set rocks, and then I doubled into my own Acheron predicting Talonflame and got my own rocks up. And I
Yeah.
think that basically sort of like settled it because at that point like he could not get Frostless back in to get a spike up or anything. His Talonflame was basically dead weight because his boots were knocked. And yeah, it was just like a matter of like seeing it through to the end at that point.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty much. This was just sort of, I guess, solided out is the term I always use in my brain, but that doesn't sound very good saying it out loud. Yeah, so that was that, and your team did go on to pull out a 6-4 victory. So, hooray for PU games that matter. The other game this week was Chloe versus Punny, or Lopunny Kicks. This one was much weirder, actually. They both brought, I don't know, more off-kilter teams. Chloe has another fat balance, which I think is the style she generally prefers, with two funny win cons in Acid Armor, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Alchemy, and DD Scrafty, which maybe it's just me. I feel like those are very weird win cons to choose for your fat team because they're both kind of conditional on like Scrafty has a very hard time DDing up and sweeping if there's just any Ribombi or Whimsicott around. You're automatically forced into a prediction like doing anything with Scrafty. And then of course Alchemy, if there's Dark type, there goes the neighborhood. So I don't know that the structure of this team just kind of gets me.
It's definitely weird. I think what she did was she just like went really hard on like getting Punny on like the matchup. Because like he does like have a very clear preference for like fat balances of his own and with like pretty limited breaking power.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured she just like went like, well, if I get like an Acid Armor, Calm Mind, Alchemy, like he likely won't even be able to break through it, and then just kind of went from there and ended up with a weird team because they have a weird thing to build around, I guess. But yeah, it's weird. It doesn't really have a lot of immediate breaking power or anything. It isn't like that bulky or anything. Like you don't have like fat wish passers or some shit like that. So it's weird.
Yeah. I do wonder if it would have been like a more successful fish if Chloe hadn't kind of been using similar fat mons before. Like I'm pretty sure last week it was the Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Kofag, stuff like that. Like I wonder if that I haven't talked to Kicks or anything, can't know, but I wonder if that influenced Kicks to like generally be pretty fine against Alchemy in particular because it was mono stored power, but against any fat boosters, I guess like having the unique stopper in Pincurchin defeating rest users is definitely pretty different. I don't know. Who's to say though? But yeah, Kicks has a weird team too because it's a Pincurchin without any seed or terrain abuse, or so it appears. It's actually for Nature Power Ribombi to hit T-Flame with T-Bolt. That's hot. I like that. 10 out of 10.
Hey, wait, is it Specs for Bombay?
I thought it switched moves, but it might have been Specs. Let me skip through back to the... Yeah, it goes for Moonblast. Yeah, no, it switches moves. It's not Specs, and it does 82% to Chloe's T-Flame as it switches in.
I was about to say, if that's Specs and it only does 82 to T-Flame, that's kind of pathetic, not gonna lie.
I'm gonna run a calc right now. Nature Power in Electric Terrain versus Talonflame, 252 HP. Nature Power doesn't change on the calc. Okay, Thunderbolt, I think it's just Thunderbolt Power. Yeah, so that does 77 to 91 from max special attack non-Specs Ribombi to max HP 0 Spadef Talonflame. This did 82, so that's right in that range. Yeah, so just boots attacker, but gets to Nature Power to smack a T-Flame on the switch in.
Yeah, is this a thing that's becoming recently in the meta where people are using Pincurchin without
No, this is the first time I've ever seen it. I'm sure someone's messed around with Nature Power stuff before. I think people have even talked about it, but I've never seen it before. I've never really seen it seriously. and it was pretty funny.
It
Interesting
was funny.
because I think Pinkerton can serve a role in this meta in particular where it's like there's loads of lanterns and shit running about. You can easily just use the lightning rod set and then just spike up on a lantern or like. I guess that requires a bit more like knockoff support, but there's loads of
Mm-hmm.
there's loads of weird things that I recognized back when we were playing like the beta or the alpha when Pinkerton was didn't have that many great abusers, didn't have abusees that could just abuse electric terrain. You could still use it in a defensive sense and it'd still be really useful.
Well, this isn't even. I mean, it is defensive and it does set spikes, but this is terrain, not even lightning rod. So Kicks also had to fit a Palisand on there for an electric immunity. And I don't know, like the team definitely suffers like a tiny bit from the presence of Pinkerton. It doesn't cover that much. So the team ends up a bit weaker to just kind of some random threats because Pinkerton doesn't switch into a ton on its own. But it does still
Yeah,
like seem pretty functional. Um, like the fact that it's
Right.
Pinkerton hurts versus something like a Vikavolt, where you'd kind of want it to beat that, but you still pretty much have the ability to play around anything like that. Like I think this is still a pretty cohesive team.
yeah. As a team. I like
I
both teams
think
actually.
basically like on the defensive end it's fine. It suffers I think more so like offensively because like he basically has to compensate for like the existence of like a Pinkerton plus like a Rabambi, which is not like that particularly useful with like just like the standard like defensive core of like well Zard or a flame Talonflame. In this case it's Zard, and then like Vaporeon, Palisand, and like Guzzlord. Like this leaves him like fine defensively, but like without really things for very fat cores,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like Rabambi isn't even specs, and like the Guzzlord I think is also not a choice. No, that's
It's
definitely
yeah, it's AV Guz, and it didn't show. It could have been Boots, maybe. I'm not sure if it's switching to Hazards, but yeah, it's non-choice Guz. I think offensive defog Zard, and it never revealed, but I'm guessing Quiver Dance Rabombi. That's just meant to be able to Quiver Dance on the Talonflame switch and then Oko it with Nature Power.
Rabombi naturally outspeed Talonflame.
No, it does
no,
not. But
no. That's
after a Quiver Dance, you get to kill it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's very good specifically against like teams where Talonflame is the only Rabambi switch
Versus,
in.
yeah, yeah.
But otherwise, I don't really rate it. And it was actually here the only Rabambi switch in, pretty much. So it could have done stuff, but then like Punny didn't like Quiver Dance at the right moment and ended up like without electric terrain against Talonflame.
Yeah, if this team were to
Like the
face
first time he did
like
it was before Quiver Dance.
I don't know Scarf Togue plus Vaporeon, you're actually gonna have a hard time breaking that. Like just that on its own. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
especially with this team, the Bombi feels like a watch this, and then you
mhm.
click Nature Power, and then the T-Bot comes out, and they're like, whoa,
Oh,
that's
it
sick,
did reveal
bro.
Quiver Dance later, by the way. I just checked that.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it definitely feels like a watch this,
Hmm.
rather than a super serious type style of thing.
Yeah,
I rate it. It's really cool.
it's Quiver Dance Roost Moonblast Nature Power. That's funky. I like it. But Chloe, like, because of that, I think Chloe is pretty close to mounting a comeback. The problem is DD Scrafty is such a weird, like, it's good, but it's also a really hard thing to completely turn around a game for you. Like I would know, like when I beat Evagero with DD Charizard, just having one left versus four, and then just DDing up and sweeping. That's the kind of like stupid thing that can save your ass when you're just getting bodied. DD Scrafty is a lot harder than that because you have to set up two DDs to outspeed the Rabombi, but at that point you're taking too much chip damage, and if you don't Oko anything, it's just going to kill you in return, which is exactly what happens. Colbur Polisand lives a
It's
hit,
not like you can.
so
It's not like you can. It's not like you can invest too heavily in like HPs that you can take more hits. Like if you invest in HP, you're either giving up all of your attacking strength or all of your speed. In either case, that's really bad. So you're kind of stuck in that scenario where you're like, well, I just hope I get 2 turns and I hope I win that way. But yeah, that's generally why I prefer the Spadef bulk up set. But that being said, I haven't played much of the meta, so my opinion holds no weight.
The actual game,
which turn are you guys on?
we haven't really talked about any turns in particular. I think the actual game itself, obviously, there's the big surprise nature power. But that wasn't like it was big. It definitely helped chip the town flame. But that one turn wasn't the biggest thing in the world. A couple things that helped. I think Chloe was really trying to like triple up on statusing everything and hoping Vaporeon wasn't Heal Bell, which it was, and revealed it very early, and that made it a lot harder to break. And the fact that Chloe's Lantern pretty much got 1v1'd by Charizard, that definitely hurt Chloe's chances. Lantern got Scald Burned early by Vaporeon, and then switched into Charizard and got Hurricane confused, and then hit itself a couple times, and like all it got was Toxicking the Zard and a weak little Volt Switch for basically being dead. And Cakes was breaking pretty fast.
Yeah, it was an inevitability. The Chloe's collapse was inevitable. It was just, could she like put up a fight in the meantime? And almost did, to be fair. The reason why I'm asking which turn you guys are on, because sort of in the aftermath of those few turns with the Charizard, Chloe managed to set up the Calm Mind Acid Armor Alchemy thing, and looks good to win the game, but then switches out of Pinkerton. Can you explain why?
Well, I mean, Alchemy stays in for a while. It doesn't immediately switch out, right? But it clearly reveals that it's not Gleam, it's stored power when it kills Kix' Zard. I think Kix probably thought he lost and had just was basically sacking Zard looking for a crit or a Hurricane confused there. But then when Alchemy killed it with stored power, Kix realized that it was not actually a loss. And at that point, Chloe couldn't do much, and I think switched out to avoid just getting spiked on before Kix could then just go back to Guzzlord and keep sitting on him. Sitting on the Alchemy.
Surely you killed the Pinkerton, right? You killed the Pinkerton before.
It was
you killed the Pinkerton even in the event of a spike. Like, that's not
it was asleep. It didn't wake up immediately due to electric terrain. Honestly, I thought it would. I don't know how that worked. But as Pinkerton switched in, the turn after a rest. Chloe would have let 2 spikes go up instead of 1, at least. I don't know.
Plus maybe the Guzzlord comes in at a certain point. Even then, can't you just PP stall? I assume. Well, Guzzlord only has one move that can potentially crit, so. I mean.
Yeah, that probably would have been the way to go, hoping for no crit there, especially since like right after that you've got to do a Healing Wish and Sandaconda dies and you're down to like 4 mons trying to hold on. That was probably the best bet, just to. And I mean, Chloe does set up Alchemy later, but too late to where it can't get enough acid armors to actually. Actually, I think she could have. I think she just messed up here. Now that I'm looking at it, Heavy Slam does 34, and Alchemy is left on 25, and then Alchemy rests instead of going for another one. I don't know if +4 defense Alchemy would have lived that, but you probably had to go for it, right? Guzzlord, Assault Vest, Alchemy, defense +2. Maybe, I guess, less defense than that? Okay, it's like a mixed defensive, so I can't know for sure. But at +4, it, like, according to the calc, it looked like that Heavy Slam would have been a roll in Chloe's favor, so you probably had to at least try that.
I probably would have gone for that.
It seems like better odds than not getting 3 KO'd or crit on the following rest.
Yeah, this entire game has just been mind-blowing to me, to be honest. Like, I thought for 100%, as Punny Kings probably thought during the game, that he 100% lost as long as the alchemy was gleam, but it turned out not to be, and it was just like, whoa, back in the game, but then not back in the game, but then back in the game actually, and it was like, what the hell's going on here?
I don't know. Weird one. But Kix pulls through, and again, both victors do move on. Kix's team winning 6-4. And that's when we get to finals, which has 2 games of PU instead of just 1. That's more like it. That's what we like to see. First one to happen was Kix versus Termi, our 2 victors running up against each other, and this time Termi again with a Rocks aggron, but otherwise this is like an extremely standard team. I don't know if you want to say.
Is it?
I think it is.
Well, okay, but like it's good. That's the problem, and like making like a consistent team in this meta is like kind of difficult. Without just like going for like Whimsicott, Talonflame. Toxic Rock is also something that I just like really enjoy slapping on a team because like the water immunity is very nice, and like especially Nasty Plot just like rarely has matchups where it doesn't do stuff. And yeah, basically I sort of started with that on my team for this week because I was like, yeah, okay, Punny really likes his fat teams. Nasty Plot, Croak just sort of goes in if you have a Vaporeon, which he had.
Yeah,
I basically caught the kind of matchup that I wanted. The only problem was the fucking Silvally Fairy, which you'll get into.
I really rate the idea that everything on the team needs to have some sort of utility or defensive utility, and like in each slot, in each of the offensive slots, even though you have like 4 like main attacking presences, like each thing provides a utility for your defense, which is, I think it's important. You really can't afford to have dead weights just defensively, just lying around and just being like, yeah, I can kill something sometimes, but you know, if you ask me to switch into something, I'll just say no. You know what I mean? So
like Pinkerton.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Pinkerton is useful, right?
It just doesn't resist much. I don't think it's switch. I think that's what Pinkerton is. It's a utility.
Well, no, it's got
offensive facilitator.
It's got the raw bulk, right? Like
fine. I mean, I guess in this example, the closer thing would be Xatu. Xatu's so weird. It doesn't actually wall anything. I don't know why people like it.
There are metas in which it does really well. This is not one. Especially not for me. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the thing with like the offensive things, that's basically like why I enjoyed like this team so much, is just because like I have like mons where like everything has like some defensive utility, but there's also nothing that does nothing. So like the problem is like once you slap like a Vaporeon or a Palossand or something in your team, you know you're gonna give free turns to certain powerful attacker.
Virizion.
Toxicroak or Virizion. And you know, like, shit, okay, now I need, like, a counter for this. And I'm just like, okay, but there are no actual counters to Toxicroak, aside from, like, very specific things.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to have to give, like, people, like, that free turn with Toxicroak by running something like that. So, having, like, this team where just, like, everything can threaten the team, or, like, you turn out or whatever, or spread status, like, it's just really, really useful.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing passive, whereas Kix is ultra passive. One win con / breaker, and mostly focused on wearing down the other team, which is not helped by the fact that you have a T-Spikes absorber, so you don't even really have to worry about removing, which could be tricky. That makes Kix's job, I think, kind of hard here, as what's clearly like a pretty semi-stall team. Without the T-Spikes aren't going to work. You've actually got to find your own damage, which is going to be tricky, but not impossible if Kix outplays you enough to keep your breakers at bay, which is hard.
Yeah, that would be very difficult. I'm trying to figure out the exact word, but there's a word that I really want to say about this game. So just continue.
What?
Give me a sec. I'm researching.
What does that even mean? There's one word that I want to say about it, but I don't.
there's one word that I want to say, but I don't know what the word is. So
Uh,
hold on.
uh,
Well, don't hold on. Like, just continue, and
okay.
I'll say the word.
Yeah, very fat team, but you'll notice it has a Vaporeon and nothing that like truly really takes on Nasty Plot Croak very well. Like it's Wheezing Zatu, um, Sandaconda. Not what you want, especially since you're Focus Blast and not Vacuum Wave, which is worse for Toad, but much better for Sandaconda. Um, yeah, I guess we can just run into the game because that's how I definitely felt you had a big match of it. Oh god, I also forgot the Silvally Fairy was Flame Charge Surf. That's fun. I like that. It's like it's not the weirdest thing, but it's cute.
It was the biggest problem for my team, so
Yeah, by far.
like I saw the matchup and I was like, okay, I really just like have to play carefully and I should be basically fine. And then like he revealed that he had Surf and I was like, okay, this is a little annoying. And then he revealed like Flame Charge and I was like, oh shit, this can actually sweep me if I'm careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
we'll get into where that really matters. But I think in the early game, something to point out is Kix was very intent on getting just rocks, to the point where Sandaconda gets hard chipped like multiple times just for rocks. Um, that was a pretty interesting choice because I didn't feel like they were too useful, and it made Sandaconda go down very early. Not that it was that useful in this matchup, but it was still like it wasn't nothing. I don't know. By turn 30, it didn't really seem like Kix's team should have been half dead. But turn 30 is also where Silvally Fairy comes in, which sets up a flame charge. Already almost wins because Aggron and T-Flame are at both half health or under. Whimsicott's paralyzed and doesn't have a prankster move to stop it. And this is where you win by either getting a flame body activation or enough dry skin healing on Surf. How did that feel?
that was a very, very precarious situation. Like, yeah, like on the turn 31, I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll just get Talonflame in, and if he serves, he serves, but whatever. Um, but then he fucking revealed Flame Charge, and it didn't burn, and I was like, oh fuck. Um, which like I really get from him, like I do think why he like went for this because I think like he just assessed that at the beginning of the game that like his game plan had to be to do something with this set, like hope that you can break past Talonflame and then just win, because like otherwise he just can't like compare to my like defensive matchup. So um, I think like that was kind of what he went for, and yeah, it was something that would have worked if I did not get like specific turns right to get my dry skin back to full so I could tank a multi attack. But I did manage to do that. I also had two fucking attempts that like activating flame body that didn't go through, so that was like very very sad.
Yeah, and
I
you
think
still
actually even like turn 35 when like I got healed up back to enough, I think it was still kind of a roll. Like I think he still could have done with a max roll, but like I guess he just didn't want to commit to that. Which maybe he should have.
Yeah, I mean you've got Wish, so I get wanting to try to take your time and thinking you have another shot. And the roll on Toxicroak, I did want to pull up the exact roll. Yeah, multi attack should do 73 to 86, and you were at 87 revealed, so it could have been a roll, but you don't even know if that's a chance that you have.
Okay, I've given up on finding the thing.
Was it Jirb?
Huh? No.
Never mind.
It was. I was just looking on Twitter. I saw it yesterday about a football match, and I kind of related it to this one. But
Okay.
this kind of feels like a legacy game. Well, it's not the exact word, but it feels like a legacy game where it's like this is why offense generally has like a preferable matchup in some cases to these sort of fatter balanced teams. Even though it wasn't like obvious and apparent that the game was like going to be close. Like Lobcakes needed one of those techs on Silvally to even have this game come close. You know what I mean? So like
That being said, though, the reason that I pointed out how much Kix's team is dead by turn 30 before Savali Fairy comes in is because you could see an alternate version where Kix like doesn't even think he's getting a roll, but sacks Savali Fairy to remove Toxic Rogue, and then is able to just semi-sell out the rest of Termi's team. If Sandaconda was alive and could have been sitting on Aggron, I think that would have actually been pretty possible. The problem is Savali Fairy has to win because too much of your team is dead or weak at that point to make that a possibility.
yeah, that's why I said it. It feels like one of those legacy games where it's like this is what offense versus balance looks like. Um, Generally speaking, if the balance is too passive, the offense will thrive, and if the balance team can indeed wall out or use its offensive pressure to force like Termi in a position where they can wall out the rest of it, it becomes more of an interesting game. But yeah, generally this is why like offense is preferable, or with why people like to use offense versus people who bring fatter styles of teams.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was for sure like thinking like in both of my games against Punny, like if I go too passive, like he can actually like outplay me. But if I can keep the pressure on, like I have a much better shot.
A lot of people would in that case feel like scared or pressured into going like passive as well, because like what's the worst that can happen if I go passive as well? The worst that can happen is probably that you end up losing. So
yes, that is generally the worst thing that can happen in any game. The loss. There's not much more to be afraid of.
I rate that you decided to that you were more confident that you would win with an offense team when usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, it was also just because of like how the meta is shaped right now. Like it just felt like a lot more comfortable like playing offense, because like whenever I try to create like more fat balance type stuff, like I feel very pressured into going extremely passive, much like you see on his teams. And yeah, like they just did not really sit well with me. Like I think they have worked in some matchups, but like they've always felt more like, I don't know, like something was off, you know. But you'll see one of them in the game with Snaga.
Yeah, I feel like if a team feels off sometimes, like it doesn't matter how like well it works on paper. If it feels off, it doesn't. You're not gonna vibe with it. You're not gonna win games.
I think there's only one other late game interaction to talk about. So a lot of things are dead and chipped, and Kix has Togue in on your Toxic Rogue, and you obviously switch out Toxic Rogue to keep it into Whimsicott. Togue goes for Endeavor, I think, trying to catch Aggron to Endeavor and then kill it, because it was a Scarf Togue and got knocked off. Endeavor was the last move. You go for Defog with Whimsicott, because if you remove rocks, then Mesprit ought to live Flame Charge into multi-attack. It's a bit of a roll, but it is in your favor for Scarf Mesprit to then be able to 1v1 that Savali Fairy. And you get fully paralyzed. And if Kix had killed you there, at that point Savali Fairy actually is like pretty much ready to just win. You've gotta be winning with Scarf Mesprit like now at that point or something. I'm not entirely sure what you would have done or if you had a plan. But instead, because he endeavors with Togue, wanting you to kill him and then set up Silvally Fairy on the Whimsicott, since it can't do that much, you get another chance to defog, and then you don't even let Silvally Fairy set up. You switch in Aggron, let it die to Togue, and clean up with Mesprit.
I did have a turn after the defog where I still stayed in and like Giga Drain, because at that point like the pressure was really high, but then I got full parried and I was like, no, wait a fucking second, this is like how I lose.
I'm not sure if Giga Drain would have killed him though.
I think it might have, because Moonblast did a pretty decent amount.
It was a 19% Togue. I didn't actually think Giga Drain would have killed, but who knows?
Maybe it's a roll or something.
Giga versus a 19% Togue. Nope, Giga Drain's not even a roll. It does just kill. Okay. Assuming your max special attack, which I think you were.
Oh Yeah, okay. If it's max special, it does. I just had like a max HP thing, and
Okay, if you're like,
yeah,
I
it
don't
was
know,
actually cool.
128
So I
special
I can
attack,
make
then
like a
even then
boss
it's a
attack.
roll in your favor.
Yeah, I think after if I had let it flame charge on me, I needed to like hopefully kill it with vacuum wave plus psychic, but I'm not sure if that would even be enough. Like
You
it would
weren't,
still have
you
like.
didn't have vacuum wave. That was the thing. You would have needed to not full
Oh
para
wait,
with,
you're right.
you needed to not full para
Never
with
mind.
Whimsicott in that case. In that case, Moonblast into Psychic would have done it, but you needed to not, you would have needed to not get fully parried. So Kix would have had a para's chance to win.
Hmm.
Unless it was
Oh, I
also
see.
Swords Dance. In that case, Kix would have been able to Swords Dance and then Flame Charge, which it might have been. It only ever revealed Surf Flame Charge multi attack.
Yeah, or like workup, I guess. Maybe workup is more logical.
Workup wouldn't have killed Mesprit though. He would have needed two workups and a Flame Charge, and that's just ridiculous. Not impossible, but
Oh, for sure.
like if it works up, you can go hard Toxicroak on another. No, if it works up and you get fully parried, then you just go for another one. Yeah. So never mind. That doesn't really change it, but you need an extra full para. Anyway, point is that was like a an interesting interaction where Savali Fairy still came damn close to winning this game. You win with a 5% Scarf Mesprit. That's how much you lived Savali Fairy by.
Yeah, luckily, like, I don't think I actually had it fully calc, but, flame charge plus because I think I had miscalced as, like, zero attack Silverly Fairy, so I thought I tanked, like, the multi-attack way better. But still, with, like, how much damage he did, he needed, I think, either two max rolls or a crit on one of his
Yeah, that
moves.
multi attack was 2% off a max roll, and Flame Charge was also like 2% off a max roll, and you lived on 5%. So it would have needed to be like both max because at that point the percents basically add up to like just enough damage, but it's so low that the crit chance on one of those moves was higher.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Which again, only possible because full para on the first defog turn. So there's like a lot of uh, weird intricacies on that end game, but you won, so we can move on. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my thought process was there. I'm trying to transition. I'm not good at it. Fortunately, we can spend a lot less time on Snaga versus Ninja Dog because Ninja Dog brought a team without removal, and Snaga got like 3 spikes in the first 10 turns, and that was pretty much the entire game.
Yo, I just like the imagery here of Snagger having T spikes on Garbodor and T spikes also on Kofi. That just makes me laugh.
Wait, was it?
No, I
No?
just like the imagery of it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Never mind. Three
Maybe I'm
spikes.
not
Three
spectating on
spikes by
there.
turn five. By turn five, Snaga has 3 spikes. Ninja Dog has no removal and multiple non-boots mons. Toxcroak, Lantern, I think Regirock, also Savali. Yeah, literally 5 out of 6 of his mons are hit by spikes. Only T-Flame is not, and there's no removal. That's just criminal. Like, absolutely deserved to lose this game off that. Sorry, Termi.
I do not understand like how this team came to be because like it's like you have a Talon Flame and you decide not to fit Defog on it, but then you also have a Sylvali Steel, which is like usually a defensive mon, but then you decide to make it Sword Stance Flame Charge. I do not fucking understand like how this team does not have hazard removal with like how it is set
It's
up.
So many.
you just
Massive
can't do
things.
that. It's just focused on being really offensive. You got Regirock, which isn't like a pivoting rocker, but it can have more offensive presence with like toxic and body
Wait,
press. You've got your pivot lantern, you've got pivot T flame, life
you're
orb. You've got not it's not life orb Toxicroak, but it's like knockoff EQ, multiple lore moves Toxicroak, and Life Orb Gorgeist, which has been getting popularity because it's actually really hard to deal with, and Sylvali Steel. Like, it's just pure offense. And I get why you would want to do that. But there was no attention paid to defensive synergies for this team. It has no Scarfer either. Aside from T Flame, there's no way to revenge anything really, unless it was also Shadow Sneak
Are you
Goregeist,
sure?
which we never found out.
Are you sure? Wasn't wait, wasn't Toxicroak Scarf?
Tusker might have been Scarf, yeah.
Oh, okay. Scarf
Because
Toxicroak might have
it
made
does kill
sense.
recoil and it has knockoff and earthquake, and we don't really run earthquake on like other
Yeah.
sets. I think.
That just sounds like
Okay.
you though, bro. Like
It probably is Scarf
that's so you.
Toxicroak, but I don't think that's like
That doesn't help anything.
if you. The point was more like if you run into I don't know DD Zard, DD Scrafty, QD Rabombi, you have like one mon for all of those, but it's offense that can easily change, and that is kind of a problem for this team. Like doing anything. The only thing
If
Ninja Dog had was SD Silvally Steel having like an okay matchup, but at the point it's set up, like it wouldn't have killed Kofag. It needed two flame charges to beat Togue. It couldn't even kill Miltank with SD and two flame charges. Like it didn't work.
I just like 1025 Booth said, "Tell me his soul view." And I'm like, yeah, I can understand that now.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about Snaga's team. It seems like a pretty fine team. It has some very fun mons. I assume Snaga was like, I want to mess around with some funny stuff like this. It just like it didn't even matter what the team was as soon as it didn't suck and had spikes.
Yeah, the one thing could have happened with Snaga if he had like a mirror matchup and the other person had a like spin blocker, you could potentially see some sort of devolution there. Um, yeah, generally it would struggle a lot with like if I had a Garbodor, but my like if, like basically it comes down to spikes, wars, spin blocking, all that type of stuff. Which could I mean you could feasibly still win that. I don't know about having such a fat team with no boots and stuff.
Um, well, the Miltank had boots and the Serena had boots. But yeah, for the most, I just sort of figured like, well, Serena like comes in on a decent amount of like the rockers in this tier, and also like can kill most of the ghosts that you would run. Like
Is Rhydon
unless you're
still in
running
this
like
tier?
a defensive Gorgeist or something, like your spikes are usually gonna get spun off if you don't play better than the opponent. Get like your calls right.
So is what
Yeah.
still in the tier?
Rhydon.
Yeah,
Why is nobody using it?
we are. It's seen some LTPL usage. It's just kind of awkward compared to Sandaconda and whatever. Like even Piloswine having the having
everything's got like body press now, and then
yeah
it's, like everything is a bit more like on par with Rhydon in terms of offensive pressure.
yeah it's got better offensive pressure, but defensively it's weak to an awful lot. It doesn't really beat any electrics that you want to. Like Heliolisk will just laugh and then hit Surf or Grass Knot. So it's really entirely an offensive pressure kind of thing. It would be a lot better in a meta where it just walled or checked more. Like in NU when it could just beat Steelix 1v1 or whatever, even if it went for rocks as Steelix Earthquake did. Like that's kind of what it would need to do.
I think right on this much like you know, something like Rock's Aggron that I've been using, and that
Mhm.
like you can only really afford to use it on a team where you are already like relying on all of your mons to have some kind of offensive pressure. Because like on any team where you have something passive going on, I think you need like the durability of Regirock and Gigalith, and like Rhydon being vulnerable to hazards and not having left and just kind of sucking in terms of like defensive typing. Just
Yeah, that's
really
interesting.
perspective. So
Yeah.
that's also I have actually run choice band Rhydon on a team like this as like the breaker, and it actually does pretty well there because like
Heat Crash is really huge for it to have now. I think Heat Crash being like just a not always safe,
Crash is good.
but
I've actually
covers.
also started running double edge with Reckless just as
Ooh.
like a good mid-round move.
Yeah, why not? Dude, that actually seems pretty fun.
Like
Wait,
still
double edge
does,
with
like,
Reckless?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that just too hella recoil?
No, you have a pretty high HP stat.
Oh, yeah, but still, like,
You shouldn't double edge on like a Guzzlord or something, but other than that.
Well, Reckless doesn't increase recoil; it just increases damage. So, like you're taking more, but it could be a lot worse.
okay, yeah. I thought maybe that it would the more damage would increase, but if the calculation happens before, but it should be fine.
Yeah, no, I think the calculation does happen after. I just the way you said it, I wanted to confirm that like, it kind of sounded like reckless increased recoil. It doesn't. The only other thing I want to briefly say about Snog and Ninja Dog is Gorgeist has been gaining more popularity as people realize like, oh, that thing's still hard to wall. But in this game, Life Orb Gorgeist happened to run into Garb, Scarf Togue, Miltank, which was probably not Sap Sipper, but still, and Sarina and Guzzlord. Like, rest Guzzlord even. So that was even more unfortunate. Not enough to really sway the matchup, but if the matchup hadn't sucked in other ways, that might have like been a factor that Gorgeist just didn't have a matchup.
It's kind of funny that he like knocked off a bunch of stuff, and he kind of just noited his own Gorgeist by doing that. To be honest,
that's true. It's also a team with Knock, Toxicroak going in and Poltergeist. Why?
That is for sure like the difficulty with running something like CB Trevenant or Life Orb Gorgeist or even like Frostless with Choice Band, because you also have to like keep in mind like, oh yeah, that's right, I could like shoot myself in the foot by like knocking the Talonflame because suddenly like it is a Gorgeist switch it.
Anyway, I think that just about covers that. Despite your team going 2-0 in PU, the rest of your teammates managed to fuck it up and tie, leading to a final tiebreaker where I'm going to assume it was your team chose PU again because you'd been doing so good. And we got one last PU game to go over, you versus Punny again, which happened about an hour ago now.
Yep.
I see an Almastar. The Almastar better win.
Yeah.
I've never seen an Almastar losing this better.
You've just got another one of those offensive teams where everything holds its weight, and the offensive rocker, like literally, if Omastar was Aggron, this would be one mon off teams you brought previously. Like Frostlass is a little bit different. Frostlass is different, and it's Omastar over Aggron, but Omastar does like the same thing as being a rocker with a good amount of offensive pressure there. Less like bulk in exchange for weak armor being really good to abuse. I like Omastar; it's super fun. But yeah, you've got like the same exact team going on here.
Yeah. By the way, like I was especially like interested in doing Omastar here because it has like a way better matchup versus rockers, and because I was building around CB Frostless, I felt that like keeping rocks off as much as possible would be beneficial. Although I also had Defrog when Scott again.
Hell yeah,
That's very cool. I like that.
Hang on, yeah, it's CB Frostlass over what was the breaker? Over Guzzlord, over like an AV Guzzlord type thing. So yeah, it really is it's only 2 mons off, and one of them is in a very similar function, but the overall feeling of the team comes out to be much more offensive. Like CB Frostlass and Omastar over Aggron Guzzlord.
Oh yeah, no, this is 100% more offensive. Like the thing that you can tell is that there's no real like, if like specs mods generally exist, like they're going to, without the typing resist, there's no real special switch in. You know what I mean? Whereas you can feasibly switch in an Almastar on a physical attacker or Togue on a physical attacker. It's not a huge deal, but as soon as you see like a strong special attacker, it might cause problems, just naturally.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that this team just does not have at all, which didn't really matter, especially in this game because there's not a ton because Kix didn't have a big special attacker, but in general, not a lot of big special attackers right now. Aside from your Omastar, which just absolutely goes in, does so much work.
The current like set of like special attackers also is just like really slow. Like I think McMortar is like the biggest like scary breaker for this team because it's still somewhat fast, but like something like Executor Lola, like it barely gets any opportunity to come in at all because like almost everything hits it super effectively and it is outsped by everything. So
and it feeds more into that mentality that this is just blatantly pure, fast, unadulterated offense. You know what I mean?
I think the worst thing wouldn't be Magmortar, but Zard, which is more capable of taking a single hit from Frostlass, can roost up versus Talonflame. that kind of stuff. Still, you absolutely have plenty of offensive pressure, and if it's not focused, like I use Focus Blast Zard instead of Dual Stab. I think Focus Blast is better than Hurricane, but particularly if it's like Dual Stab Toxic, then Omastar can come in once or twice.
Double five if you just run the Flame Charge.
Double fire.
Fire Blast, Focus Blast.
Oh, that actually sounds fun. But no, I mean, like, especially if it would have to be Focus Blast Zard to even reach, like, the Magmortar threat level, because otherwise Omastar can at least do some checking. So, obviously, like, I think that comes out fine. And turns out offensive Omastar plus Life Orb Nasty Plot Toxicroak plus Choice Bane Frostlass, it's a big breaker hours. And I don't think Kix's team helps. Kix's team feels like the culmination of everything we've seen those guys using. It's got another Life Orb offensive Gorgeist. It's got another offensive Silvally form with unusualness. Instead of being Surf, this time it's Silvally Ghost looking to set up. And then the rest of the team is like basic defensive mons to fill it out. Golbat to be better versus Toxicroak because you do so much of it. Gigalith is just a different rocker. Passimian Aromatisse for longevity and revenge killing.
I'm telling you, dude, this game feels like a tiebreaker of sorts, but not just like the fact that it was the grand finals tiebreaker. It feels like the tiebreaker of like balance versus offense. It's like this is so many tiebreakers just molded into one right here.
The fight for the soul of the archetypes.
The archetypes.
I think you're putting a little bit much weight on this, but like, yeah, it's again, Kix brings a very balanced team and cannot get this breaking going, and you actually have like good breakers to get through this. If I'm gonna be honest, and this isn't to knock, I don't feel like this game was as much you outplaying your opponent to really get your breakers going, as much as you already had just really strong stuff from the start. Omastar and Frostlass don't have good resists here, so you're pretty much immediately ready to just output so much more offensive pressure than Kix can manage, compared to like only getting going after you knock a T-Flame and Fire Blast a Frostlass. Try saying that 5 times fast. This was just an immediately very difficult game from Kix, and only like closer because you missed like 2 Poltergeists and a Hydro Pump.
For sure.
Wait, you missed 2 Poltergeists and a Hydro Pump and still won?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How the fuck?
I missed 2 in a row actually, although the second one didn't matter as much. But yeah, basically by turn 20, like I thought I basically had it unlocked because like it like at worst was gonna be a trade war where I was ahead. But then like I missed on the Gigalith with Poltergeist, not knowing that he had a Silvally Ghost in the back, so I assumed Steel, so I didn't want to click Icicle Crash. So yeah, I thought that this was like his mid-ground play of just sacking like the Gigalith since it was low on burn. But instead, like, I missed, and he got to go to Golbat and eat one and roost it off. And then that plus like
so you Hydro Pump Silvally Fairy or Silvally Ghost, which is going to 2-hit KO in addition to the rocks and I think maybe some Sand Chip. Silvally Ghost multi-attacks first. Does 80, so it's going to kill you, but activates weak armor, so you get to kill it first. But then you miss the second Hydro Pump, and Kix gets to kill you with multi-attack instead of just dying. And at that point, Omastar might have just... Oh no, it's still slower than Passimian. But aside from that, Omastar does so much work.
No,
it just buttons
isn't.
so hard.
It isn't actually.
Oh no, it's not. Yeah,
I had...
You're right, sorry.
I
So
had 2 weak armors up, and therefore, like, the only thing that could really save him was just, like, spamming Roost with Golbat on the Ice Beam, since I couldn't do it KO'd with that. But, like, in return, he also doesn't really do anything with Golbat, so, like...
Oh yeah, you already had a weak armor up. No wonder multi-attack did 80. I just skipped over like that. Oh yeah, that's pretty normal. Yeah, no, at that point, Omastar actually would have just... Okay, so Golbat would have killed you, but you would have done 50 to that too, and at that point, it's like even more over. Yeah, Omastar just does so much work. Like it kills the Aromatisse coming in. Your sets also really helped here. First, there's so you have a default Whimsicott again, but this one is Switcheroo Lagging Tail.
I didn't want to knock something and then like run into the problem of like, oh, they have a Poltergeist resistance.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Especially like if I can just imagine you running into an itemless mon and then switcherooing it. That would have been pretty funny. And then CB Frostlass, I just want to know, did you even bother running triple axle on it? Because it only showed Poltergeist Icicle Crash.
No.
Thank you. Worst
I
move in the
just
game.
no.
Wait, why is
For
Triple
real,
Axel bad?
Because
The
it
thing
doesn't
is, like,
hit. It doesn't hit ever. And then when it does hit, you get flame bodied. It's so bad.
not exactly. It's like between like basically having 70 accuracy if you want like the full power, which is what you want because Frostless is kind of weak otherwise, and like the problem of like this can activate flame body flame body 3 times if Talonflame comes in. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
It just isn't.
it's such a frustrating move. I'm assuming it was like Ice Shard and Trick, or Ice Shard and Destiny Bond, or Trick and Destiny Bond,
I
or
had
something.
Trick and Spikes because I was like,
Oh,
there may be
Spikes.
like
Yeah.
if I happen to run into like the rare team where like they have like a reliable switch into Frostless, it might be nice to be able to trick something and then just like start clicking spikes instead
Mhm.
and try to win
Love
that
it.
way.
I love the fish.
Yep,
Love
totally
the
fair.
fishes.
What else? What else? What else? Kicks also never even set rocks. Really got a great chance the entire game, which probably would have been the best thing for him. Like Frostlass really just needed to die, and it never did, and that's a problem. Like rocks and pressure on that Frostlass would have helped a lot, but even then, Omastar did like half the breaking too. That core was just so good in this matchup. It's like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, kicks very early on has in a 100% Gigalith on T Flame. Um, goes for EQ, predicting you to go Togue on a Toxic or maybe Toxicroak, I guess. As you just stay in to burn it,
I
and then goes for Toxic, trying to hit the T Flame as you go Whimsicott.
like Toxic Croak.
Yeah, probably
Yeah. No,
Toxicroak.
I assume Toxic Croak was like a predicted thing because like Togedemaru would be like an extremely weird thing to just like risk at that point.
Yeah.
But like Toxic Croak could potentially switch. It could not actually threaten out Gigalith because I was like Nasty Plot Vacuum Wave, but he didn't know that, so.
Yeah, I don't like that play because you really do want rocks. I mean, you don't know yet that the Frostlass isn't boots, but getting rocks, or at least just like, I don't know, completely losing those Gigalith turns really sucked. Not getting rocks because it turns out it wasn't boots. But then also, you've got a Golbat. Just abuse the fact that you have like the only super safe Toxicroak switch in, and don't be that afraid of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is definitely like one of those like kind of like clicky plays that Punny sometimes makes, where like he just like can like randomly just like catch you off guard because like you're like he'll never fucking click that. So like if I was like okay he's never gonna EQ there here because it made no sense and like try to get like Togen or something, I'd be fucked. But I was like, you know what, I don't 100% need Talonflame maybe in this matchup, which I was honestly wrong on. So I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna whiff this because like that's way safer.
Fair enough. I think that's all we really have for the game. So going to the outcome of this was just played very recently. The other two teammates of yours have not played, but hopefully after your 3-0 semis and finals performance, they actually managed to come through for you. And that lands you with a 7-2 record overall.
That's a good record right there.
The clear standout best record.
Steak?
Yeah. After that, you've got Chloe at 4-1, and then Lax with his weird 3-0, and then like me, Kink, and TJ back at 4-3.
Isn't Chloe 5-1?
I have week 3 beating you, week 4 beating Kink, week 6 beating Trix, week 7 beating TJ, losing to Punny in playoffs, and that's it.
Okay, for some reason I thought that she was 5-1.
No. Nope. Still a good record, just not a better record. And poor Kick. I feel like Kick's Had some pretty good game. Kicks was 3-0 going into playoffs, but is now saddled with a 3-2.
Sorry.
All right. Well, I think that was a real big, good old comprehensive look over of 5 whole games. It took over an hour. Should probably end it with some gimmick corner, huh? Termi, as you're the guest, we always ask if there's anything you'd like to share. Obviously, we just went through most of the stuff you've been using, so if you just want to say like CB Frostlass, that's pretty fair.
Um, yeah, well, CV Frostless I feel like isn't really a gimmick. It's mostly just like an underexplored breaker. I think CB Rhydon, as I mentioned like earlier in here, could also qualify, but can also just be considered like an underrated breaker.
I mean, gimmick corners for underrated stuff too, not just gimmicks. And CB Rhydon is definitely something nobody's running.
Yo, I've definitely got my gimmick.
Yeah, I guess I'll make that my gimmick then, because looking through my teams, there's not like a whole lot that's like super out of the ordinary that I've built recently. So yeah, use CB Rhydon on like fat teams or teams where you can give it like a lot of like full turn support, because it doesn't actually have switch-ins that like come in reliably. Like the best you can do is like
Sandaconda
or something, but like even Palisand or something, I'm pretty sure.
Sandaconda or Palisand plus ground immune, that 50/50s like that plus Talonflame, so that you have to choose between EQ and Stone Edge.
So essentially, if you can build yourself a team where you like maximize the like basically a very durable team that gives Rhydon plenty of opportunity to come in, can do really well against pretty much any team, because like against that kind of team, it's really just a matter of like getting the 50/50s right eventually, and then from there on, you kind of just win. It is really, really, really good in pressuring things. It's just kind of hard to build with. Slow, doesn't offer that much outside of being strong, but it's great.
Cool. I haven't played any current gen PU over the last couple weeks. It's been all Slam and stuff. I don't really, or it's not Slam Classic. I don't really think I have anything to offer. I guess Black White PU Machoke as something that's usable now that there's no throw is something I faced last week 3 times, because my opponent brought the same thing 3 times and got insanely lucky. That said, I got haxed all 3 games pretty significantly, and the only reason I won is because he threw 2 of those games after like having a clear win. But I was impressed by Machoke's ability to just sit on things and confuse you. It's a pain.
Plus, you get the black-white confusion hack.
Yeah, black-white having even better confusion mechanics. Whee! Okay, Hedgehog, you do your thing.
So I was looking through my teams, which are now a month old, and I came across this one Lantern set, which is Assault Vest Lantern with Rest and Sneak Talk. So don't use that.
What?
I have no idea. Why is it Assault Vest and why is it Rest and Sneak Talk on the same set? I have no idea.
I guess you were just like, well, if I have to get knocked by a Togedemaru,
knocked by a Toge, like, yep, as you do. Get knocked by a Toge constantly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know.
I'm guessing that's what was it, but I'm guessing the actual set that one. Was it you that gave me this team Megazord? Because it has an Assault Vest Clawitzer and a Reversal Banded Toge.
Yes.
Then yeah, this is the set. Use Reversal Banded Toge.
Yeah. That was the team I used versus LST like 4 weeks ago in LTPL.
That's crazy. Yeah, did you win that game?
I did win that game.
Set's broken. Use it.
Yeah, I won because I had Quiverdance Rabombi that dodged Toxic from the Jellicent that was mono walled by Toxicroak when I didn't expect that. That was that game.
Deserved.
Hell yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Termi, for showing up to talk about your 3 dubs. Congratulations on that performance. And we'll be back in like 2 or 3 weeks probably. Maybe it'll just be 1, but hasn't been that way so far. And what will we even cover? Probably resuspect stuff and classic finals.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.